Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I'm both lucky and proud to run IBM's Watson Artificial Intelligence business for the UK. For 50 weeks of the year, the All England Lawn Tennis Club is very much like any other tennis club in the world, in that it provides a place for people to play and to engage in the sport. It's just perhaps a little better known than most of the other clubs. And then for 2 very special weeks of the year, the club and Wimbledon itself, they find themselves on the international stage, and they welcome more than 500,000 people through the turnstiles and serve a global audience that runs into hundreds of millions. To meet the demands of that diverse global audience, the Wimbledon team, they continue to innovate year on year, and they've won lots of awards for their applications of technology in driving interesting ways for fans to engage, to discover and find out about the sport. For almost 30 years now, IBM's been part of that technology journey as Wimbledon's partner, and the Wimbledon team have used Watson's artificial intelligence since 2015 to further transform the experience and develop it, which we're very delighted about. For 2018, the Wimbledon team looks set to knock it out of the park once more, and to set out how Watson will impact the championship, please join me in welcoming to the stage Head of Communications, Content and Digital for Wimbledon, Alex Willis. Alex.
Thank you very much, Paul, and good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Okay, brilliant. So you may wonder what a tennis tournament run by a private members club is doing at a cognitive technology event. And I'm going to start by just teeing us up by asking each of you to think about what Wimbledon as an event means to you. It means many different things to all sorts of people around the world. I don't have a clicker, actually. I don't have a clicker. Oh, I have a clicker. Yes, have a think about what Wimbledon means to you. It means all sorts of things to different people. So as Paul so kindly introduced, I work for Wimbledon. We run this sports event. We have this ambition, this is our strategic vision, to not just be a leading sports event, but to be the absolute pinnacle of the sport that we're in, and be one of the best sporting events in the world. So to help you answer my question about what Wimbledon means, I'm going to introduce you to the launch film for this year's championships, which we released last night following the conclusion of Roland Garros. See, or hopefully get across from that piece of content, we're trying to celebrate history, our history, the history of our players and our champions, but to do so in an innovative way. And we also recognise, going back to the original question, that people's feelings or attractions to Wimbledon depend on these 3 different things. So the players that you grew up watching, it may have been Becker, it may have been Graf. For me, it was Tim Henman. Those terrible Saturdays watching him not win the tournament. It could be the location that you're in when you happen to be consuming Wimbledon. You may have been sitting on the sofa, you might have been in the car listening on the radio, and it also might have been some of our traditions. And these are the things we can't control the players, we can't control people's locations, but we can look after our traditions. Things such as the grass, our whites, the vision of people saying quiet please when they walk onto court. So we recognise that to try and sum up all of these different things that Wimbledon means is quite challenging. And this is where our mission and our challenge, particularly for this year, comes in. So what we're trying to achieve and why we're here today is to change the perceptions of what people think of Wimbledon as. Yes, it is this traditional, very prestigious sports event held in southwest London, but it's also a global brand that we want people to think positively of. Why do we need to do that? Because we want to future-proof the event for the generations to come. We want to make sure that we're attracting younger audiences, people from different territories around the world, and therefore future-proofing our business. We can't just rely on being a strong brand, we have to think like a business at the same time. So going back to what Wimbledon is and what we'd like to think of it of increasingly is as a data-driven media organisation. We've got challenges, we've got a golden era of men's tennis, a golden era of tennis with amazing players. People are increasingly time poor, we're increasingly surrounded by much more competition. Technology is changing. We're being judged on technology launched last week, not last year. How do we make sure we adapt to that? And we've only got 2 weeks to get it right once a year. So we need to focus on the things that any media business does. We need to think about our audience, we need to think about people's experience, and we also need to think about the content that we're creating. So on the first topic of understanding our audience, there are 2 significant things that we're launching this year, or actually 3. My Wimbledon, this is our personalised digital experience. We're trying to engage with our fans year-round to develop a better understanding of them. Segmentation, actually having an insight-driven model to help us understand our audience for the first time. You may not believe it, but most people's interest in Wimbledon doesn't actually just come from tennis. It comes from all sorts of different things. And increased use of personalisation, so making sure that we're being relevant to each individual that we're working with, driving the engagement of our fans to not just enjoy Wimbledon, but actually become advocates for us at the same time. The second part around experience, so recognising that all of these things are converging, but how do we also do justice to each of them at the same time? Experience isn't just about a physical one anymore, it's actually how you combine all of those different things together. We need to make sure that we are not just doing things in a way that is beautiful, because Wimbledon is beautiful, but also leading edge uses of technology. And increasingly making sure that all of our platforms are acting as a gateway into our brand for people to understand Wimbledon and why it's so special. And the third area is around owning our content. We recognise that to be a media business, you have to own and control your platforms. You have to have the best platforms you possibly can, whether that's going all the way from large screen TVs to mobile apps. We need to manage and control the production. This year, we are launching Wimbledon Broadcast Services, so we will be managing the host broadcast for the first time. But we also need to make sure we've got personality. One of the ways to keep people engaged with Wimbledon is to celebrate those traditions, to poke fun at ourselves, and make people feel like they're having a human engagement with us. And technology provides such an important enabling role in making all of this happen. And what's been really fascinating, and I think a lot of the conversations you'll hear today, is increasingly you can't separate out these 2 aspects of technology. AI fulfills digital and digital fulfills AI. And what's been fascinating in our partnership with IBM is how AI is increasingly becoming a layer that underpins all of this, not just a single activation on one particular thing. So in terms of what this means for 2018 and the different things that we're developing, as we say, we want to make sure we maintain our focus. We've got to deliver stuff that works. We can't afford not to have stuff that works, but we also want to embrace technology and what that offers. So going back to our 3 areas of focus on audiences, 2 new elements for this year. SAM Tracker, this is our scoring and insights application. It's been completely redesigned, and what we've tried to do is tailor it according to the type of fan who's engaging with it. So if you want high-level overviews, there's something there for you. If you want point-by-point analysis, there's something there for you. If you want to understand actually who's winning a match and how likely that momentum is to shift, there's something there for you. And this is underpinned by machine learning, so one of the first examples of where AI plays an important role for us. My Wimbledon, I mentioned earlier, it's really important for us as a brand that we don't just resort to it being an email program. We want it to truly be a personalised digital experience that combines push messaging, email, other content delivery to ensure that we really are giving people that ultimate experience of Wimbledon. On the experience side, we've got 4 different things to talk about. So Wimbledon.com has been completely rebuilt. The reason for doing this is to move to the React framework, and we wanted to provide our fans with something that is allowing them to do multiple things at once, recognizing that they're time poor, they may want to dip in and dip out, but if they've got time to spend on the website, making sure that our live stream product, the Wimbledon channel, doesn't reload every time they want to go and check the score in another part of the website. We want to maximize video views because we know that's how people want to engage with us, and we also want to make sure we're able to set the foundations for enhanced personalization in years to come. From a chatbot perspective, we're going to have 2 different types of chatbot at Wimbledon this year. The first is called Fred, named after Fred Perry, and that's an on-site visitor assistant. This is underpinned by AI technology, and this is designed really to be a companion to people when they're spending their day at Wimbledon, but also recognizing that we've got a hugely valuable audience who are not on site, and we need to find ways to allow them to personalize their experience. So we're going to have a Wimbledon Messenger bot contained within Facebook Messenger, and this is all based around people's followings and passion for different players. So they'll be able to identify which players they want to follow and receive automated content in real time based upon those preferences. From an AR perspective, we recognize that we have a site rich with history, but it doesn't necessarily come to life. When you walk past a plaque, you sort of think, oh, that's nice, and you just keep walking. Whereas what we want to do, and we'll be doing within the Wimbledon app this year, is replaying some of those famous moments that those plaques represent. So many of you may know the longest match of all time was played at Wimbledon a few years ago. There's a plaque on court 18. If you hold your phone up to that plaque, you'll be able to watch highlights from that match. And the last one is around public Wi-Fi, recognizing that people want to be able to share their experiences at Wimbledon. And in fact, there's no better advertising for us than if people do so. So we've extended our public Wi-Fi into the queue, a group of people who wait patiently for hours on end, and we're going to provide them with a live stream of the content that's being shown on the hill. So they're not quite inside the grounds, but we want to make them feel like they are and giving them an experience. From a content perspective, we've got 3 main areas to mention to you. AI highlights. This was something that we piloted last year, and essentially we wanted to make sure that we're not just an early adopter but a first adopter, and that being first out there with content about a particular match is often the difference between someone engaging with your brand and choosing not to engage. The competition out there is fairly significant. So we wanted to improve our efficiency, we wanted to improve the breadth of highlights we were able to create, and this year that's going to be expanded and enhanced. Rebranded as AI highlights, the package has been taught to recognize player emotion when a player is essentially celebrating, crowd noise, and also particular moments in time to generate the highlights. Data-driven stories, so making sure that we are giving people an opportunity to go deeper into matches, and Wimbledon broadcast services I mentioned before. What's also really important is that we're delivering all of this at scale. We have around 20 million unique devices on our platform for 2 weeks. It can't afford to go down and it can't afford to go wrong, and AI plays a very important role in helping deliver that through the IBM cloud. From an innovation perspective, we want to make sure we're celebrating the opportunities created by things like IBM Watson. And the AI highlights I mentioned is actually now a commercial product being sold by IBM, and it's got to be secure. We rely heavily on IBM to make sure that our platforms don't go down in the face of over 200 million security attacks last year. So I'm going to finish just with one story here that is particularly nice for this year, which we launched earlier at the IBM kiosk. How do you marry up tradition and innovation? Well, what we've done is actually create a photo mosaic, which is this year's Wimbledon poster. The poster is something that is one of our core traditions. It's been around for hundreds of years, literally. And this year, we asked Watson to essentially pick out of a database of over 300,000 photos, marry them together to create this beautiful photo mosaic to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the All England Club. And in the future, well, there's so much going on in this space, it's kind of hard to predict what's going to happen next year. But just to leave you with the fact that our pursuit of greatness doesn't really stop. We started with this question, what does Wimbledon mean to you? Hopefully, as well as our traditions, you now think of innovation when you think of Wimbledon. And having this vision to guide us and a great partner to support us is where we are today. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alex. It's incredible to hear about the evolution of Wimbledon, and it's fantastic to be part of that with our technology and with our people as well, so it's great. You talked about changing perceptions. In the 7 years since IBM Watson defeated the worldwide Jeopardy champions, and it scares me to think that that was 7 years ago, but we've seen that same technology applied to so many high-impact use cases with lots of creativity, like we've seen with Wimbledon. And that just makes me really reflect on what might be possible for the future. I think it's a very, very interesting time. You talked about owning content and owning data. These are things that we believe are really, really important. And we developed Watson to focus on businesses and to focus on professionals. And that means two things. It means that we can be completely trusted with the data that you share with us, or that your customers share with you, and that you then in turn share with us. We're never going to try and monetize that. We're never going to try and snatch insights from it. And the insights and the intellectual property that you might develop, as Wimbledon did, on top of Watson, if you choose to do that in partnership with us, that's your own insight, that's your own IP. So we'll never ever have a business model that's in conflict. You're not training an artificial intelligence that we can then go and sell elsewhere. And we think that that's very, very distinct and important. So right now we've got Watson working at scale in production in such a diverse range of industries: financial services, it's in the media, it's in communications, but it's also working with smaller organizations and charities and startups. So it doesn't have to be the case that you need to be a large organization to work with Watson. We've worked very, very hard to make the technology accessible and consumable, and to take the entry point to something that really approaches zero. So don't be afraid to make a start if you want to. I guess it just remains to say, if a 150-year-old organization like Wimbledon can reinvent itself year on year and is confident that AI is an underpinning layer and Watson is an underpinning layer, then I'd urge you to reflect on what might be possible within your own businesses. And of course, we'd love to talk to you about this. So if you want to explore this wonderful technology by way of demonstrations and exhibits, or to talk about what might be possible, then we have a team at the IBM Pavilion, and we'd love to welcome you. Thank you.